Okay, Craig. So give me your basic definition. You've said this before on the show. I know you have, but we're gonna have the whole show today about the fiduciary and why the fiduciary is so important. But first, let's define it. Go right ahead, please.
Well, I mean, I guess the crux of it is making financial decisions, or more specifically, decisions on my client's behalf. And when I make decisions on my client's behalf, I got to make sure that I'm working in their best interest first and foremost. So, a lot of times when you have like a regular brokerage or a person is working based on a commission-based relationship, that's not always the case. So I can go around and find a particular product. If both products are very much identical to one another in performance, I could actually choose a product that would pay me more from a commission based. So as a fiduciary, you have to weigh that very closely, making sure that if I do pick a product that I get paid more on, I have to basically show and prove that that product is actually better for my client than the one that I would not get it paid as much on. So it really ties our role as a financial advisor, as an individual, that I am looking out for the best interests of my clients.
But how many brokers would you just guesstimate, totally, just a guess, are not fiduciaries? How many are not fiduciaries? Would it be like a 50%, 25%?
I that would be a tough question to address because it's more on how they conduct their business. For example, I can have a client that one client that'd be with me, but I could have two separate accounts. One would be a brokerage account that's commission based, that's not applied to a fee. Another one that is a fee based relationship to where I'm making all the decisions on what is being bought and sold within that platform. So in the fee-based account, I am acting as a fiduciary on behalf of my client. In the brokerage account, I am not acting as a fiduciary within that. So it's really more tailored into how the relationship is structured. Now, there are businesses that are out there that are 100% fee-based. Now that the area there is, you'll hear people talk about being completely fee-based. That could also mean you come in, you sit down, you pay the person $1,500 for a meeting. They put together a financial plan for you. You take that financial plan, but then you go off and implement it yourself. And then you schedule a time over the next year. Then you pay the person maybe $1,000 because they already have all of this information, just needs to be updated. And then you see how your performance is doing, and then that's completely done. So that is a fee-based platform, but then they're not really acting or making any major investment decisions. They're just giving you ideas or suggestions, and then you have to go out and implement. So it's really tough to kind of answer that question because it really tailors as to how the different financial institutions are structured individually, and then how the advisor for that institution works in regards to are they working in a fiduciary capacity or not.
What do you think is the most important or the several points that we should discuss that is important for our listeners?
One is to understand what kind of relationship that person wants to have with an advisor. What's their expectation from working with a financial advisor? Do they want to delegate a lot of the financial decisions to that advisor? And then if they do, does that advisor they're interviewing have the capabilities to do what they need? Whether it's managing cash flow, whether it's product investment, whether they have a large amount of products from which to choose, you want to see if that is actually a good fit along those lines. You could be planning and doing all sorts of financial planning, but the rubber meets the road when you come down to taking a look at what is the investments that you're going to be applying to your portfolio, if you will, or your financial plan. And then what is the process to find those products? And you want to have confidence in that process in the event that the markets do their thing. The markets are going to be volatile. They're going to have their ups and their downs. And are you going to be comfortable with that up and down and at your withdrawal rates and a wide variety of things? So
Please, unbiased advice. Go ahead, bro.
so one of the, I mean, that basically ties into why I ended up building Definite Analytics 15, 20 years ago. Um, it was that areas that I really struggled with because financial advisory is a very sales-oriented business. A lot of financial firms will limit the number of mutual fund families that organizations work, or they would just have a sales staff that would just go off and sell these mutual funds. We have a growth fund, we have a value fund. And you'll notice that even within a lot of 401k plans, a lot of 401ks have reduced the number of actively managed mutual funds and increased the number of exchange traded funds or ETFs, have increased the number of lifestyle funds within them. to minimize the decision making that the participant in the 401k can do. And so they would delegate that, and then the primary purpose or primary component where they start to compete is now on price. And so then the question starts to become, if you're not doing the proper, or you're not working your client's best interest unless you're making a recommendation for the cheapest product. And so that is one of the areas to where I've always struggled to where, but there are products, there's actively managed portfolios that can reduce the risk or exposure volatility for a client. And yeah, it's going to cost more than just buying an overall index fund, but the net result is what the client needs and expects. So how do you find that product? What do you do, and what characteristics or stats do you look at to compare to the underlying index or whatever? So Decider Analytics helps me to act in that capacity to where, all right, this is how volatile the markets are presently. This is a criteria if we think we're going to be in more of a defensive cycle. What criteria should I be applying to products and during what time periods? So I can basically have a profile already built, apply it to data sets, and then it sorts and ranks what products are there. Now it creates a list for us to be able to select from. So when you come into my office and we're sitting down trying to decide what investment product is going to be best going forward, understanding what your income needs are, what your growth needs are, what your estate planning needs are, whatever that is. Now we have all of the pieces together, and then the investment component starts to put those pieces and start to make the picture of it, if you will. So that is probably the most important component of what I try to do in regards to utilizing that platform, because I can't come off and just say, oh, well, here, you need a growth fund. We have the perfect growth fund for you. And then another client comes in, oh, we've got a growth fund. We need to have and make the same recommendation of a growth fund. Where some cases that may be the case, but at least I have a process that highlights, we make these tweaks and adjustments. Here's one strategy. We make some tweaks and adjustments for client number 2 coming in, and the number may be the same, but the rank and order may be the same, may be different, but the rank and order may be the same. So there are chances where I could be making the same recommendation on product to a particular client, but now I have a process that justifies me making that product or making that recommendation. So that is, I think, one of the more important components of what I do, is helping the client feel comfortable with what they currently have and making sure that the goals are met, help them to take the focus off the current volatility or short-term fluctuations in the market, and allows them to stay focused on the longer term. So this way they're not making long-term mistakes with short-term decisions.
What are important things that we need to discuss in continuing this conversation, Craig?
Well, again, the Decider Analytics is kind of touching on that as well, to where for example, firm traded models. A lot of different organizations are going to utilize their models that are built by their own firm or their own research department. In most cases, if I cannot compare the research department of the firm with that of other third-party asset managers, I'm not going to utilize the firm traded models. And when I do break up those models and I recreate them, most cases, the reduction of volatility, increase in performance isn't there, therefore justifying me to use an actual product that I would actually get paid less on.
Craig, how would you like people to connect with you, get a hold of you, help other people manage their retirement zone savings? What's the plan?
The easiest thing is that you can actually Google my name, Yahoo my name, Bing my name, whatever. You can get on Chat GBT, I'm sure, and just kind of say, hey, find Craig Stiles with the Ameriprise, and then my information will pop up. That's one of the more easier ways to find it, because it'll take you directly to my website and all my contact information. My local phone number is 517-483-4893. Again, it's 517-483-4893. You could shoot me an email directly, and in the subject line, you could say schedule an appointment or something like that. And that email is craig.stiles, so Craig.Stiles, Stiles, at AMPF, so that's Adam Michael Paul Frank.com.
Would be a conflict of interest for a financial manager, a fiduciary?
Well, a couple of examples there is if you're going through and making a trade, and say, for example, you're investing in similar products as your clients are, okay? And you have a larger book of business, and you know that when I make this change, the markets could move. I'm going to use that term loosely. So if I go through and I make a purchase of a particular product a day or two before I rebalance my book of business, know I'm going to buy a lot into that product, that could boost my net worth before my basically act in my best interest, if you will, versus that of what for my rest of my clientele base. That is one area in which conflict of interest is a big no-no in that type of trading taking place. So there are constant monitoring that takes place within the financial advisors, what's going on with their personal accounts. So I always have to have that stuff disclosed. So that way conflicts of interest don't participate or don't take place. So that's just one example of how a conflict of interest could take place to where I benefit more than that of my book of business or any of my clients.
As a fiduciary, you have a certain obligation. Can you please talk about that?
Well, it's kind of interesting how you talk about it from a tailored advice standpoint because you always hear this, oh, we'll customize a portfolio for you. It's specific for you. 90% of the time, what they're doing, they're utilizing firm traded models. And then all they're going to do is tweak the asset allocation. Well, you, Tom, we're only giving you 65% of this portfolio. And, Sandy, we're going to give her 64% of this portfolio. So it's completely tailored for you guys, but it's the exact same portfolio. You're just giving different money to each. And that's always been rather frustrating for me because I sit there and think what you're basically doing, you want to educate the client on what they're actually investing into. Why are we picking this particular strategy? And just to use your example, right? In your area, we're actually utilizing 3 different institutional strategies for you and Sandy. Two particularly for Sandy, one particularly for you, but we also look at them in aggregate, and then we made some modifications when income needs are adjusted, growth needs are adjusted, whatever it might be. We reevaluate what strategies are most appropriate, but I use a screen process that is specific to the client. So that is what I think is rather unique about what I enjoy doing about Decedary because it makes the search process unique. And then if products that float to the top or happen to be similar from one client to the next, even though the clients appear to be different, the objective is making sure that the goal for the individual client, because your goals are going to be different from one client to the next, that your goals are achieved. And that is what I think is really distinguishes what we do and what other advisors might do in their platforms.
Tailored advice to a new client. And
Well, the dynamic was with the prospective client that's coming in. I was evaluating their portfolio. In the previous segment, I kind of highlighted how you'll have an asset allocation structure or firm traded models, and then the way they make it tailored is that they just change the asset allocation of maybe 3 or 4 models that the firm recommends, and then you just give a certain amount to each model. So if you're a 60-40, 70-30, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, or 70% stocks or 30% bonds, then they classify that as being one is tailored for you, one is tailored for Sandy. But that stock portion of the portfolio is exactly the same, and the bonds portion of the portfolio is exactly the same. The only thing that's tailored to you is the allocation that you've given to each strategy. So that basically creates a risk return that kind of goes along the spectrum to where if you're taking the same risk and same volatility, same performance, if you will, of the index, you're gonna get the same performance of the index. If you increase your fixed income, you're going to get less performance, but you're going to get less volatility. If you increase your allocations, you're going to get better performance, but more volatility. But what do you do to try to get into that other quadrant that reduces risk and increases performance? How do you find those strategies? Very few strategies or abilities to try to find that are actually implemented within a portfolio. So with this particular prospective client, when I went through and was looking at the portfolios, that one account was moderately aggressive, the other one was aggressive, and the accounts were invested in exactly the same products, just different shares. That was it. And so when I compared the overall performance relative to what I'm making a recommendation on, they could distinctly see the difference. And I actually put it down to where there's presumed they weren't paying a fee at all, even though I know it's a fee-based platform, with us at the fee level that was appropriate for them. And so from that perspective, you're looking at that us net of fees was still outperforming and having a less volatility than what they were accustomed to. So the big difference, I think, was highlighting and that custom approach to search for this particular client, and then being able to share with them why I'm making the recommendation. When I would ask that question about, well, why this particular strategy? I mean, you're utilizing individual stocks, mutual funds, and ETFs, all in particular one areas. Do you understand fully what the process is that made this recommendation to begin with? And not so much. And so that's where I think we engage our clients more during that process, because now when you come in for a review, I can run the screen on the most recent data. We can see where your product fits and relates with what is out there. And we can make the decision, do we keep it or do we not keep it? Because now we have the history with what clients have had or experienced in their own portfolios. And if it's meeting their goals, there really isn't a need to change unless there's something egregious in regards to the overall performance or what our expectations are going forward in the market. So, but 90% of the time, we would maintain and keep the strategy because clients have become accustomed to it. They're familiar and comfortable with the process, and they're happy with the overall end results.
All right, Craig, I'll give you 30 seconds for another quick takeaway, and then I got to go. Go ahead.
Oof, you leave it kind of open up for me now. 30 seconds. What can I do? Basically, I think from this is making sure that you have a strong understanding of who that you're working with as a financial advisor, appreciating what they have to offer, and making sure that the product that they're offering is really meeting your overall goals and objectives. So,
Craig Stiles is the bomb. Love him so much. 29th visit to the radio program. Unbelievable. The Fiduciary. What else you want me to talk about? The biggest thing for Craig is the relationship. You've got to have a relationship with your financial people. If you don't, then and your money disappears, so sorry, Charlie. So until next time, everybody, I'm Papa Tom. You've been listening, watching, doing that thing with the Tom Matt Show, and we're so grateful to all of you. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube because that's helping us a lot. And we want more and more people to know what we're doing here. And it's very, very important for us to share. Thank you so much for doing what you do. We are out. Talk to you next time. Peace out. Love you all.